Got it?
Lights, camera, action. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we good? All
yeah,
right. Hello, welcome, and thank you. First of all, before I even start talking, I just want to say thank you to you for inviting me. I feel honored to get your email. You know, I have a strong connection with Malaysia. I've been there many, many times, and it's one of my favorite countries. In fact, I always say that I'd like to retire in Malaysia and maybe live, you know, on Tioman or the Perhentian Islands or somewhere like this. It's so beautiful. So very lucky to be living there. But look, I'm a principal of a school over in Sydney, and I have a preschool plus a primary school. So I have children from 2 to 12 years old. We have about 300 children in the school, and in March we had to close school temporarily. Now, we didn't close for long. When COVID hit and it started to become quite prominent in Australia, the government left our schools open for a short period of time, but then as the numbers grew, we were asked to close and become remote learning schools. But as a school, it was really important that we were prepared. So we kind of preempted that schools were going to close, and we got ready early. But one of the problems we found was that our youngest students, so our 2 to 6-year-olds, you know, or our Cycle 1 students, we knew that learning was going to be difficult for those parents because, you know, if you are 3 or 4 years old, it's going to be really difficult to be able to learn from home unless mum and dad can do a lot of the teaching, unless they can be the guide. So what we did was our policy around our Cycle 1 parents was we made a learning from home booklet that went home, and it was basically to empower the parents to set up a Montessori environment in their house so that the children would be able to establish a kind of a familiar routine with what school and home looked like. I think it doesn't matter whether you're homeschooling for a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, or a 12-year-old. The most important thing I think that strikes out is that your home must resemble a similarity to what happens in school. If mum and dad are going to try very, very hard to educate their children at home, but you know, the thing about school and home that makes it so different is that when a child enters school, that's a space for learning. And they know, now I'm in this space, I'm in the environment, this is where I learn. And lots of parents made the big mistake of setting up the learning environment at the dinner table, or you know, in a place where is usually it's a place where we eat food, or they sat on the sofa, you know, in a place where you relax. And the thing to remember is that a child's brain, you know, it remembers exactly. It tunes in like this and goes, this is where I relax. I'm going to relax here. This is where I eat dinner. I'm going to have a talk here. But what was really good for us is we allowed our parents to set up a unique and new space somewhere in the house that was unused, whether it was in the corridor or it was on the balcony, somewhere where the child had their own physical space, and that was their space to learn. And it worked. It was a huge success. Many parents have kept this space in their house now, even though our schools are open. So, you know, this unique space for learning and independence is now a kind of established routine in all of our parents' households. But what we learned, which was really important, was that the key factor and why Montessori really shines out in this scenario is our ultimate learning goal is independence. What we want from our children is for them to be independent. Montessori said, you know, if a teacher is a good teacher, then you shouldn't be able to see the teacher when you walk in the room. You should be able to see all the children, and the teacher should be invisible. And, you know, you go to any mainstream school or regular school and the teacher stands at the front, all the children sit and they listen to the teacher. Whereas in a Montessori school, the teacher's on the floor working with one child and 25 children are working independently. So we really hit home with the families and let them know that the independence was what we wanted them to drive at home. You know, so when a child comes to a point where they don't know what to do, there's nothing to do, the work is over, and we call it being in a void. When there is a void, what you want is something for the children to do. So somewhere where they can go and go, okay, I have nothing to do now, so I'm not going to go bother mom. I'm not going to interrupt her while she's working. I'm not going to, you know, talk to her. I'm actually going to do one of these other things, which is where we installed our practical life ability. So we gave parents a list of 60 practical life activities that the child can then turn to and go, oh, you know what? I'm going to paint a wall. I'm going to plant some seeds. I'm going to sort the laundry. I'm going to make my bed. And all of these things are practical life. They come from stage 1, but they're very, very important when you go into cycle 2 and when you go into cycle 3. And I think that the parents were extremely fortunate and happy with that. And they started to understand the true value of practical life. That, it doesn't have to be worksheet. It doesn't have to be homework. That, cleaning the garden, feeding the dog, helping mum wash up, going shopping, planning a menu, following a recipe, all these things are learning, and they all feed into the education cycle. So it was actually really, really a really good experience to have the children at home. But I'm glad it's over now.
Right, yeah. You kid not, of course, about lying down on the floor. I've seen schools in India, ladies in saris are lying down on the floor with the children working, right? To make they're all comfortable and all. So essentially, you've basically touched on, preparing the perfect environment, a learning environment for the child. It's just basically something that parents is completely unfamiliar with, and overnight they suddenly have had to do this. So you've mentioned that your school had sort of like a preparatory kit for that. So in all, though, having done that, they have a corner for their work thing, so to speak, right?
Yes.
But how important is it for you for the parent or for everyone to understand each other in terms of what should they do every day? Are there ground rules? What understandings between them? Are there limits? Are there expectations?
Of course,
so on and so forth? Yes.
Well, part of our learning from home booklet, or the guide that went home, and look, in my school, we continuously have parent information evenings about being a Montessori parent. And so, for example, what is punishment? What is punishment for a parent? Because their experience of punishment when they were at school or in their family when they were a child, maybe that they were grounded or something was taken away from them, or, they were even hit by their father or mother. But, that's not the punishment that we install in our school. So we must make sure that our parents are singing the same tune as us as teachers. Otherwise, the fact of the matter is that the teacher will always lose and the parent will always win. Because the hard fact is this, that in one calendar month, a child will spend about 120 hours at school. But in a calendar month, a child will spend 540 hours at home. Now, you put those numbers together, and if dad, for example, let's say that, this happened to me as a child, somebody hit me in the playground. I went home and I told my dad, somebody hit me. And my dad said, you go back and you hit them harder. Now, my dad told me that. And I went to school and I hit him harder. Now, I got in very big trouble. Now, I did that because my dad said it to me. But my teacher told me, look, if someone hits you, you come and tell me and I'll fix it. But I didn't listen to the teacher. I listened to my dad, because that's what children do. They listen to dad over their teacher, because dad rules. Dad is family. Dad is blood. Or mum, I'm not saying dad, but it could be mum. And what we need to do is make sure that mum and dad are singing the same tune that we're singing at school. Because if they're not, then we lose. We always lose. So, it's about educating the families exactly on what Montessori is all about in terms of punishment or rewards or, time constraints, all of these things. We need to let them know that, independence is key. So when the child comes to you and says, Mum, I need help, you say, look, I can't help you now. But, I tell you a very quick analogy on this, what happened when we closed our school. So obviously, you have the work cycle, the uninterrupted work cycle. We have ours from 9 o'clock in the morning until 12. So from 9 till 12, we have the 3-hour work cycle, which is the Montessori ethos. We all know how that works. And in that time, if a child wants to work for something on 3 hours, we leave them to it. So if I go to school and a child says, last week I said to a child, oh, I'd like to give you a lesson now on the racks and tubes. And this girl at school said, sorry, Gavin, I'm really busy today. Can we do it tomorrow? So I was like, wow, this is wonderful. That's what I want. I want a child like that. Whereas in many families, they don't want that. They want to say, you listen to your teacher and you do what he says. But I don't want that. I want them to say, I'm busy. I've got a lot of work to do. Can we do it tomorrow? And for me, that's I celebrate that. But for some families, they find it hard that's the way that we go. But what we wanted to do was make sure that families were also doing the same thing. So mum and dad would meet with the child at home at 8:45. They would talk through the amount of work that they had to do. And at 9 o'clock, they would say to their child, okay, I'm going to go now into the bedroom to work on Zoom for the bank or whoever I work for. I'll be back at 12 o'clock and we're going to have lunch together. Between 9 and 12, you're not going to disturb me. You're going to do your work. And if you cannot complete your work, if you get stuck, you go to your practical life checklist and you can do any amount of practical life you want, but I will see you at 12. And so we developed this real sense of independence for the child. And the mum would come at 12 o'clock and the child would be in the garden sweeping or planting seeds or something amazing. And parents started to really value this independence because it gave them time, which is exactly what we want at school.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes, I think it's so important to have this sort of family forum sort of meeting, on a very regular basis to touch base with each other and not ask each other, what do you do at school or what do you do at work? It's more like reconnecting. And it's so meaningful to know that that's the context of the relationship between the families, and it is pretty much, I don't know if you gather that, it's pretty much, un-Asian and un-Malaysian in the sense that that involves a bit of intimacy, a bit of closeness. Most of the time parents, they come back, they're so busy and they're like, have you had your homework? Have you done this and that? So I'd like to relate that to the question we have in the chat here. Anne asked about when we homeschool the children suddenly overnight, and I have to create a learning space for them, so to speak, right? Does it involve, or should it necessarily involve the parents making materials, for the children, especially for the the cycle 1, even cycle 2, and how important it is to do that, to make it, the material to assist them, and so on and so forth. What do you think?
Well, look, you can't make all the materials. There's, just to let you know, I counted, there's 46,000 pieces of material in the average stage 1 classroom. So I'd like to see you laminate all of that before overnight. Hey guys, get your laminators out. We're gonna, you can't do it. It's impossible, right? Yeah. So, you have to pick your battles. So what we did at school was we made some materials, the key components. So we made some red rods out of cardboard, and we sent them home, and parents, we sent a small pack home with the key components. And we picked our battles because each week we knew what was coming up in the curriculum. It's really, really hard because you're following the child. So each child is in a different trajectory. So we had to kind of scrap some of our Montessori-ness, as it were. We weren't able to follow the child with everyone. So it just so happened that everybody in week 2 was doing the red rods, and we sent home some kind of cardboard versions of the red rods, and, sandpaper letters and things like that. And also, along with that, we gave live Zoom lessons on how to use them at home for parents. So we had a camera facing down on the table, and the teacher would say, this is a 3-part cards, a 3-period lesson on, parts of a flower, and we would deliver it, and the parents would watch, and then they would go away and try to replicate that. And obviously the parents aren't Montessori trained, but, we don't care. It's really not that hard to deliver a 3-period lesson on the parts of a seed if you're a grown adult. So we sent some materials home, but once again, we turned to practical life because, Montessori, if you go back to the original Montessori methodology, she had no materials. It was her son who invented the materials. All of the materials she used were sticks and stones and things she found, because it was for the poor children of the street. So, you can do your counting sticks with spoons if you want. You don't have to use those very expensive AMI Nienhaus materials. You can find most of the things you need in your house. So, if you can find 50 stones in the garden, well, there you go. I'm sure you've got 2 bowls for rice, so you can do your transferring. It's not hard. So, we got through it, and I don't think you have to go overboard. But it's good to have a set of materials in your house as a parent, especially in stage 1. I think one thing that I think is really important when you're trying to establish independence in children, especially in the younger years, is I found that when they have their own space, when children have their own space in the house and they're responsible for that space, this really comes through later on when they're in the elementary years. So, you know, there's three things that we insist in our school. Number one, the child must choose the clothes they wear for school every single day. But they choose from 3 piles of chosen clothes that the mum prepared the night before. So they don't really get to choose, because otherwise everybody would come as Superman every day. So mum puts out 3 piles and says, you can choose what clothes you want to wear. And the child goes, oh my God, I get to choose? Really, they get to choose from a choice that we pre-chose, because, you know, if it's winter, they will still come in small shorts and, you know, flip-flops. So number one, we allow. Number two, children must have their own space in the house somewhere, whether they're 2 or 12. They must have a shelf that belongs to them as minimum, where they can put their books, they can put their pencils, they can put their things. And when mom or dad is cleaning the house, or whatever they're doing around the house, when they're doing their thing, the child must then go and clean their space or manage their space, because that belongs to them. It's their responsibility. And number 3, we insist that they make their own lunch. So if they are 3, they must help in some way with the lunch. If they are 12, then they go shopping themselves, they buy the food, they make their own lunch. Those 3 things in my school seem to work amazingly well in developing independence in children. So, you know, I think as a parent, the one thing you need to do is really try to push home independence as much as possible, because A, it makes parents' life easier because they don't have to do as much, and B, independent children are the most successful in the world. This is a fact. You know, when schools went into lockdown and we had to go homeschooling, our 12-year-olds, they didn't ever speak to their family. They just said, give me the laptop, I'm going to my room, I'll see you at 3 o'clock. And they did everything independently. It was amazing. So, you know, for me, independence is the key factor here.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think that's something that we need to just remind our parents about, or anyone working with children. That's the main aim, isn't it? To get the child towards the independence path and all the accomplishments and so on and so forth. So we've been talking more in the context, and we might just be remembered because you and I and most of us are educators. We're thinking, yeah, well, okay, so now with the lockdown, so and with the homeschooling and all that. But actually, parents are the best teachers, as you say. They spend more hours with the children. And all that, you know. So in the midst of all this, you know, recognizing the 3 examples you're talking about, which will promote the independence and everything, how important do you think should we discuss? You're saying those 3 requirements. What if they say, oh no, I don't want to make my lunch today? You know, can you make it for me? You know, we call them what, non-negotiables? You know.
Yes, we call it exactly the same words. We use the same words.
Yeah, so how is it important to discuss this and not to compromise? You know, like no phone, no digitals at meal times, those sort of things. Or what did you think?
Yeah, well, look, you know, there's non-negotiables at home and there's non-negotiables at school. So, for example, in the work cycle in the morning from 9 until 12, you know, a child may come in and say, I want to do painting all morning. And you say, that's no problem. You can do painting all morning, but don't forget, every day at school, you must complete 45 minutes of mathematics and 45 minutes of English. For example, they are my non-negotiables in my school. You can do whatever you want, but every single day, I must see 45 minutes of maths and 45 minutes of English in some way. You know, it doesn't have to be multiplication. It could be working with money or building a website or something like that. But they must produce those times. And, you know, if they don't, the consequence is that in the afternoon, when it's time for projects and big picture thinking and what we call big work, I don't know if you call it the same thing, we call it big work. If you haven't done it, if you've painted all morning, then in the afternoon when you want to build that dinosaur, I'm afraid that you'll be doing maths and English, because that is a consequence of your action. Your action decided, I want to do this now, and therefore the consequence is that later on you'll have to make sure you fill that time in. And the same thing applies at home. You know, the consequence of your action, every action has a consequence. And that's what we try to push home, that if you're mean to people in the classroom, you know, if you go around in the classroom telling everybody they smell, right? Then ultimately, what I could do is I could give you a detention and send you home. But that wouldn't solve the problem. What I need to do is let the action that you are following through just sort itself out. So ultimately, nobody will play with you, nobody will sit with you, and you'll have no friends. If you are really mean, nobody will play with you. And so we relay that to our children. You know, I had it this week. You know, a child was doing something at school, and I said, if you continue to do that, ultimately you'll end up sitting on your own every single day. Nobody will want to play with you. I said, if you are nice and you are, you are cooperative and you collaborate and you're empathetic, people will want to be around you. This is just the way it is. And so the child, we had a long discussion. The child went back to class and had to think about that. Now, if I punished that child, if I said, you're on detention, well, the environment is not going to teach that child any valuable lessons. And the same thing applies at home. If you don't pack your lunch, then tomorrow you won't have any lunch. Or I'll make your lunch, but I'll choose what's in your lunchbox, and you probably won't like that, because what I like is not the same as what you like, and so, we establish that as parents. Ultimately, though, if they don't pack their lunch and they come with no lunch, then I have to give them lunch. I can't let them starve. But, I have to I usually tell a lie, and say, oh, I'll share my lunch with you. And I make them feel very guilty. And I say, I'm starving now. I'm giving you half of my sandwich. Look what you've done. The consequence of your actions. Yes, but and that's the rhetoric we try to go with at school. And I think that works very, very well, because ultimately, that's the message you want. That if you are a good person and you do the right thing, then your life will be easy and fruitful and you will get places. But, if you are mean and horrible and selfish and, then it's very hard to get anywhere or to have a true happy life, as it were.
Yes. I mean, relating some experience, I try and persuade the children to find out why somebody's, not respectful, so on and so forth. They might be actually trying to say something else. And usually they're wonderful peacemakers, our children. Usually yes. the nemesis or the, the adverse party usually become the best of friends after that. And
exactly right.
One other example of that, this what you talked about, the consequences that drives home with me is the one when they're supposed to go swimming and they forget to hang out or wash out their gear from the time before. So a week later, they want to go swimming and they haven't been responsible. I said, well, you just have to wear whatever you have there, or you missed out. And it's stinky and stuff. And I've actually had some students, having to wear that, and then people stand away from them. Yeah, that's the best one.
Well, look, we have a policy in Australia, because the sun is so hot. Our policy is that if you don't bring a hat, you can't play at lunchtime.
Right.
It's called no hat, no play. And quite often, children will say, I forgot my hat today, and can you call my mum? And I say, why would I call your mum? And they say, well, she will bring my hat. And I say, I'm not calling your mum. At lunchtime, you have to sit down in the shade. You can't play. Now, they never forget their hat again. Right. And look, I tell you a story, very quick one. We have something, I don't know if you have this in Malaysia, but we have something called going out. Now, at any point in the elementary class, a child can put an application into me and say, Gavin, I want to go out. I want to go out of school. And the three boys, they came to me and they said, Gavin, we're studying Indonesian culture. And these boys were, I think they were 8, and we're studying Indonesian culture, and we want to go down to the supermarket, and we want to buy all the ingredients, and we want to cook a meal for the class, an Indonesian meal. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I said, this is great, let's go. So they printed out the bus timetable, they did a risk assessment, they had everything, a shopping list, it was just perfect. And I said, don't forget your card for the bus, because in Australia you have to tap your card. It's like a travel card and you can go on the bus. Anyway, in the morning, the three boys came to my office and they said, Gavin, we're ready to go. And I said, okay, let's go. Get your bags and get your cards. And one of the boys said, Gavin, I forgot my travel card. Now, they've been working on this for 2 weeks. So I said, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to come anymore. And he said, do you have a spare card in your office? And I said, I have a spare card, but I'm not going to let you use it. And he said, please. And I said, if I let you use it, you'll never remember your card. I'll always solve your problems. So he started crying. And then we left school and we left him in school crying. Now you might think, oh, what a horrible person. Who is this horrible, tyrant? So we went shopping and we did all the shopping. Actually, took very long time. The children took so long doing the shopping. We went in the supermarket with 20 items and one boy turned to the other boy and said, what's a shallot? And the other boy said, I think it's meat. And so I then followed them to the meat section where they looked for shallots. Anyway, 30 minutes later, they asked the shopping assistant and he said, it's a vegetable. And we spent hours doing this process. It was very tiring. Anyway, I got back to class and the boy was waiting and he was upset. And I said, how do you feel? And he said, I wish I remembered my card. He said, but I've made a special pocket in my bag now, so I'll never forget my card again. And, you know, that's it. That's ultimately it. You know, I could have given him a card, but, you know, he would have never learned the ultimate lesson. So I think we have to do that. And parents, you know, parents fix the problems way too much. They fix the problem way too much. Oh, my bag's too heavy. And Dad says, I'll carry your bag. Well, no, you pack the bag, you carry it. And tomorrow, you don't pack as many things in there and it won't be so heavy. You know, it's very simple. But, you know, parents want quick fixes. They're like, get in the car quickly. I'll put your seatbelt on. I'll carry your bag. I'll pack your lunch. You know, I'll put your shoes on. Like all these little things, they take time. And, you know, we're in a time in the world now where people don't have time. Exactly. Where people are time poor.
Yeah. So we've mentioned about you know, some sort of ground rules, or I think what we can safely say, what Montessori referred to as freedom within limits, so to speak, right?
That's the word. Yes.
So with these limits and thinking about working from home. With the curriculum and all that, I guess I could also mention what we practice in the elementary years, what we call posted curriculum. So I mean, we can't study everything, so we choose a certain topic for 6 weeks and so on and so forth. Yeah. So if they were to do it at home, I mean, you know, they will still need to manage it, so to speak. So this is where I would like to introduce, you know, what we call the timetable. I mean, is it something that we can do, we can have, and how best to use it? And how do we discuss options with the children on for children who don't know what to do next?
Yeah, so look, you know, going back to what we said before, I think that especially when children are working from home, and this is important in every classroom in the world, Montessori or not, you know, and I've done a lot of work in India and in Malaysia and Thailand, Cambodia, Bangladesh, where this is one of the key features, and that is that before school starts, before anything begins and you start teaching, that expectations are laid right out in front of the children of what's happening for the next 7 hours. Here is what's going to happen in this room for the next 7 hours. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what you're doing. Here's what my expectations of you are. And here's what you can expect of me. And when you tell the children that, they know immediately the limitations. So, you know, for example, if you say, for this morning between 9 and 11, I'm actually doing one of the great stories with the Year 5 students. If you're a Year 4 student or a Year 6 student, please do not interrupt me. Do not come to talk to me. Do not come and interrupt me, ask me any questions. I am extremely busy. If you need some help, you've got many friends around here you can help. And if you can't think of something to do, you can go to the library or you can do some practical life or blah, 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 blah. Now, as soon as you tell them your expectations on what's happening, everybody knows where they stand and what's going to be occurring. Children love routine. They are, you know, they love routine and they love knowing what's happening. And when you tell them, they're very, very happy. It's when they don't know what's happening that you have a problem. Even as adults, we are the same. You wanted to organize this conference, this Zoom meeting. You know, you started preparing this 2 weeks ago. You told me, in 2 weeks, would you mind coming to be a speaker so I can get ready? I can book my Saturday and make sure it's clear. Like, children are exactly the same. So this establishing routines is important. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a structured timetable where 9 till 10 is English and 10 till 11 is maths. It can just be, in the next 3 hours, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this. Here's what you can do, here's what I'm going to do. And then at 12 o'clock, we're going to have lunch. And at lunchtime, we can all chat and we can catch up. But 12:30 is going to be recess. And at recess, you can run around and play and do whatever you want and go wild and crazy and roll in the mud. That's fine. At 1 o'clock, we're going to do silent reading. I'll also be reading silently, so I expect you to read silently. And the afternoon is big work time. We're doing big projects. I'm working with this group on dinosaurs, and everybody else is free to continue with their own. Children just love that. As soon as you tell them all the things that are coming up, they love it. And when children went to learn from home, we gave parents this clear instruction that we sent them expectations of every day. And in the morning, between 8:45 and 9, they had a conversation about what are the expectations for the day. And at the end of the day, very importantly, they explained what's going to be happening tomorrow. And we do the same at school. You know, at the end of the day, at 5 to 3, the teacher sits in group and says to the children, tomorrow we're going to do these things. Because anxiety comes from children not knowing what's going to happen, especially when they leave and they go home. So look, I think timetabling is good. It doesn't have to be too structured, but it's all about explaining what's coming up and what's going to happen in the future.
What about, recognizing whether we should, whether there's a need to give children a break? I'm talking about generally, whether it can be like during the day, a daily thing, or a break from a project that he or she has been doing for a while. And even in the home, like, they have the chores, the same chores again and again, what about giving children breaks? How important do you think that is?
Yeah, well, look, I think we have a system where there is a break every single morning. At any given time, the children can go, and we have a little table called the snack table. You have the same in stage 1, in cycle 1, I'm sure. And children go whenever they like, and they grab a snack and sit with a friend and have a talk. I think it's important. We all need that time to have a time out, and children need it way more than we do. But they need to know the limitations of it, how long it takes, how long they can have. We have a little egg timer. So the children go to the table, turn over the egg timer, and when the sand runs out, they have to go back to their work. And it's 10 minutes. So, we ask the parents to do the same thing. Children can take a break whenever they feel. And some children had a break immediately. 9 o'clock, they had their break. They hadn't even started. They said, I want my break now. So that's fine. But the consequence is there's no break until 12 now. You've got 2 3/4 hours. And, they learn from that. So they say, well, actually, maybe I'll have my break tomorrow at 10:30. And they slowly fine tune where the break should be. But yeah, I think having a break is of key importance. In fact, I also insist that my staff have a break in the work cycle. So in the morning, they step out of class for 10 minutes and have a cup of tea. Because it's intense for everybody, 3 hours of solid work is not easy going. And, children choose some children choose not to have a break, and that's fine. They don't need a break. So giving them the choice, I think, is important. You're muted.
Obviously, I'm not so savvy as much as I'd like to be. So I was going to ask you, ironically, the all-age question that everybody seems to ask. Now, how can we use technology to our advantage? I'm not going to say you're in a Montessori school or not, but technology is always a sensitive thing.
Of course. Look, when I took over the school I'm running at the moment, I walked into the school and there was not one computer in the entire school. And we had a meeting with all the parents, and I told them, these are the changes I'm going to make. And there were many changes, and some of them not so serious, some quite serious. And I said, I'm going to bring computers into school tomorrow. And some parents, oh, this is a Montessori school. You can't bring computers in here. And I said, why not? And I said, Montessori isn't about technology. And I said, if Montessori was alive, she'd have plenty of technology. She was all about innovation. But she'd have technology in a way that is very Montessori. So, we installed computers in the school, and we established a system where children got to book the computer, which is, look, I've got to quickly tell you this, that the most beautiful time of the day for me is between 8:45 and 9 o'clock in school, because our school starts at 9, but our doors open at 8:45. And what you will hear is you'll hear children sitting at their table. So let's say you've got 2 7-year-olds sitting in cycle 2, and they're sitting at their table, and one girl, and it's hard to even imagine this, one girl turns to the boy next to her and says, hey, are you free to do the project on dinosaurs at 10 o'clock? And he says, I'm not free at 10 o'clock because I'm working with Thomas on trains. And she says, well, what about 11? He said, I'm free at 11. He said, okay, I'll meet you on the blue table, 11 o'clock. You bring the paints, I'll bring the paper. Okay, we'll write it in our diary. Now, that's executive functioning right there from a 7-year-old. That's planning and getting your calendar in place and knowing how long things take and, time management, scheduling, all these things. These are essential skills that will stand the test of time in life later on. And these are 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds who are using their diary in this way. It's insane. So, this kind of routine is beautiful because the beginning of the day should be about organizing your time. And I think that, our children, especially in cycle 2 and cycle 3, when they have the freedom to be able to use the time wisely, I think that they can establish these routines that will set them up for future. And I just think that the Montessori method stands out in a way that, you know, this independence we talk about, it comes from so many angles, you know, and when I go to those children and say, can I give you a lesson on the checkerboard at 10 o'clock? They say, actually, I promised Thomas I'm going to work with him on his train at 10 o'clock. I say, okay, that's fine. We can do it in the afternoon. And I love that. I love that. And I love the fact they don't mind to tell me. I'm the school principal. You know, they, in a lot of schools say, oh, yeah, you're the principal. I will do whatever you say. Otherwise, I'm in big trouble. But no, a 6-year-old says, oh, Gavin, I can't make it. I'm busy. Can we do it this afternoon? Okay, we'll do it this afternoon. No, this is, I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, you know, someone just mentioned in the chat exclaim, wow, okay, 6, 7-year-olds checking their diaries, so to speak, and all that. And I think I mentioned earlier on to you just now that, you know, it's pretty much un-Asian and un-Malaysian to be, you know, quite chummy with the principal at this level. In our culture, I mean, I would think that not all of us are like that. We're slowly growing, and maybe some of us are just a more different. But we tend to, you know, rely on approval, you know, asking, what shall I wear, this and that. And even as we grow older, as young adults, what college should I apply to, or which car should I buy? So this is approval thing, as it's quite kind of big. I think it's also a show of respect, asking parents which house should I buy, so on and so forth. So, you know, talking along the lines that you did is just quite amazing and wonderful. And I don't see why it can't be done. But there's a fine line, because we still do have some people, regretfully, in our part of the world who do not recognize children as their own right, you know. So
yes,
I think that relates to one of the question, one of the participant Anne again asked, you know, how do we deal with new students who are just not used to working on their own? They're used to instruction, so on and so forth, and maybe timid, or as well as have no clue, you know, how to move on. Yeah, maybe
so you mean they've come from a mainstream school and they've come to Montessori and they're not independent? Is that what you mean?
Yes, possibly, yes.
Yeah, so look, I think that's more prominent when you get to elementary years. So in the preschool years, you know, these children are very adaptable. They can learn very, very quickly in the sensitive periods, anywhere between 2 and 6. Those children become very independent very, very quickly indeed. But when you get to the elementary years, when a child is 7, 8, 9, and they have been spoon-fed, you know, for 6 years before that, you have a big problem on your hands, because suddenly they will follow you around like a sheep. You know, they follow you everywhere saying, oh, I need help. Do you like my work? Is this good work? And you think, please, you know, it's annoying, because you think, why has somebody spoon-fed you for 6 years? This is the problem that we're facing now. And so, you know, it's good because we work in Montessori schools, so we can tell our families, don't spoon-feed them, don't compliment them unnecessarily. You know, when they ask you if you like their work, you tell them, why did you do that work? I like the concept of why you did it more than I like the product. If a child says, I did it because I want to teach my little brother about dinosaurs, you say, God, I love your work. I don't care what it looks like. The intention is so pure. You know, that's what I love. And, you know, when we talk to parents early on and we get this kind of feeling from them where mum and dad start to, it's not about impressing mum. It's not about getting a good grade. It's not about being the best. It's about being the best person you can possibly be and becoming better than you were yesterday. That's the only thing that we're looking for in our children. And when parents have that conversation with their child, say, I don't care if you're top of the class, as long as you are better than you were yesterday. And I don't care how your work looks, as long as the intention behind why you did it is going to make somebody else's life better. And that's what we push at school. When you have those two conversations from 2 to 6, you get a child who is 7, 8, 9, who is independent, because they know what they're about. They know why they're doing the work. They know what their objective is. And going back to your question, what do we do with those children? What I normally do with those children, because we have that situation here over in Sydney, we have children coming from mainstream schools. And, you know, they want to come into Montessori, and so we do something, we give them a visit. They come for a couple of days, and we have a little visit, and then we see how they go. And if they're really, really dependent, it's very hard. We do take them sometimes, but we have worked very hard to try to unlearn those habits of dependence. But sometimes, more often than not, they're semi-dependent, and they're the good ones to work with. And more often than not, we give them a buddy. in school who's very independent, and we say, look, you're going to be their friend for a term, and you're going to teach them about independence and how it is to be independent. And it seems to work really, really well. But what's important is you get the parents on board, because more often than not, and I'm sorry if any parents are listening to this, it's coming from home. You know, mum and dad are doing way too much for their child. They're doing way too much. They need to do less, you know, and therefore, you know, the independence comes very quickly when you do less.
Yes, yes, that's right. Like robbing them the experience of learning things themselves, right? I think what you mentioned really touch a sensitive chord there. You know, this the competition part, you know, and all that. You know, is basically we try to remind the children. It's a concept that they can understand, but it's difficult for the parents to understand. That we want them to compete with themselves to be a better version the next day.
Yes.
There's no other form of any competition whatsoever. That's the toughest one, because at the end of the day, most of them are asking for postcards and report cards and grades and stuff. So, you know, that brings me on to the next, you know, inquiry I would like to ask you. You know, the importance of collaboration when it comes to learning. And I'm not talking about children collaborating amongst themselves. I'm talking about, you know, the whole community. How do you think we should go about that?
Can I come back to that point on competition, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
And we'll come to collaboration in a second. Look, competition is very important because children naturally are competitive. You know, if you know, last year we had our first Montessori sports carnival in Australia, and I organized it, and all these schools came together, and I organized this whole sports carnival with no competition, nothing. So they ran the 100-meter race, and the children ran down the track, and when they got to the end, there was a person waiting, and they put a sticker on their shoulder and said, 1 minute 22, jog back to the beginning and try to beat your score. So we put all these mechanisms in place to stop people competing. And then the children, they ran the 100 meters and said, I beat you. I beat you. And I was like, no, you know. So inside them, they feel this competition. Mm-hmm. But I think that especially in places like Malaysia and India, Bangladesh, there is an old historical context there, and it probably comes from colonial Britain from all those years ago, where to be the number one was the best. And parents say, I want my child to be number one. Yeah, and they push for that. Now, they don't do that in my school. Like we don't have grades, we don't have exams, we don't have scores, we have no rankings, we have nothing. But our children sit the standardized tests every year and they come top. They absolutely ace it. And we don't care. You know, it's not about that. We know what they can do. We don't care what the standardized test tells us. And their parents also feel the same. But I think when I went to India, I was working in Bangalore, and I was working with a school, and it had 8,000 students, a huge school. In fact, the principal, she had a golf cart. She drove around this campus waving like the queen in this golf cart. And I was like, who is this lady? Well, this place was like a city. It was huge. Anyway, she said, look, Gavin, I need to change my school. I want to establish a more essential skills-based curriculum. She said, I follow you on LinkedIn and I love what you say and I want to have that in my school. How can we turn away from grades and rankings and scores and move towards skills? And I said, the first thing you need to do is get all of your parents in, and we do a whole day workshop with all of your parents. So we did this workshop it was very tiring, but over one day, we had all parents in for 1 hour at a time. So we had, 1,000 parents for an hour, then another 1,000, another 1,000, another 1,000 for the whole day. And it was, God, I was so exhausted at the end of the day. But I tell you what happened, it was really remarkable. And these parents were ones, and all they cared about was number one. They wanted their child to get number one top score out of 8,000 children. So that means there's 7,999 losers and one winner. And I was like, this is crazy. And if their children got 99.9% in an exam, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Their children get hit, whacked, angry, is not 100%. And I was like, what crazy rules are these? Anyway, so I got the parents in to the, if you ever have this challenge, I tell you, this is the solution you have. I got all the parents in the hall, and I put on this, it was mum and dad, all mums and dads sitting in this huge hall, and I put on the board 20 things that make a wonderful parent. 20 bullet points to make a wonderful parent. For example, reading with your child every day, or going to bed at an appropriate time, or making sure they eat fruit and vegetables every day. Anyway, I put them on the board, and I said to all the parents, I said, okay, now I want you to go through these 20 points and score yourselves out of 5. give yourself a score out of 5, and I want you to discuss it with your partner, and at the end we'll talk again. You've got 10 minutes. Anyway, so off they went. And in that 10 minutes, I heard all these discussions, and Mum was saying to Dad was going, oh yeah, we're definitely a 5 on the reading. And Mum said, you never read with the children. He said, I read, you never read, we're a 3. And they had these debates, and it was really fantastic. Anyway, I listened to all these kind of arguments happening. It was fantastic discussion. Anyway, at the end, I said, okay, now you have a score out of 5 for each one. So if you got 5 out of 5 out of all of these, that means you are 100, and you are the creme de la creme of parents. I said, now add up your scores and give yourself a score out of 100. So they added up their scores, and then I lined them all up in the hall. I said, if you are 0 to 30, come over here. If you are 30 to 60, come over here. 60 to 90 over there, and 90 to 100, you're right up there at the top. Anyway, all the parents lined up, and you could see their faces. You could see how they felt immediately. And I said to the people at the top, I said, you're the best. You are the creme de la creme. You're the best parents in the entire world. I wish I was your children. I said, you're at the bottom. I said, you're terrible. You are the worst parents in this school. You've got a lot of work to do, and you're probably not going to make it to the top. And you guys in the middle, you're okay. You're not that good. You're not that bad. You're just in the middle. Anyway, then I said, now, how do you feel? How do you feel at the top? And they said, we feel really embarrassed and ashamed for the people at the bottom. We feel really guilty. I said, how do you feel at the bottom? And they said, we hate ourselves. We are just the worst parents. I said, what about the middle? And they said, well, you know, we don't feel like anything. We're just middle of the road. And I said, and that's how your children feel when you make them compete against each other. Nobody wins. No one at the top, no one at the bottom, and no one in the middle. And then we scrapped exams, and we got rid of everything, grades, ranking, scores, the lot, because the parents realized that when you compete against each other, and ultimately no one wins. So anyway, sorry, I wanted to share that story with you.
It's excellent. You transform 8,000 people, more or less, parents of them.
I did that in quite a few schools now. It works. It works really well.
Yeah. Okay, right. So we were saying about collaboration when learning. Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. So look, I mean, this question really is about children learning as collaborators. Right. And I think that we're very lucky as Montessorians because we have the mixed age classrooms. You have your 3 to 6, 6 to 9, and 9 to 12. So, you know, everybody's on their own trajectory. You've got a child who maybe 9 was, you know, working as a year 6 level on mathematics, but a child who's 6 working at a 9-year-old's level in history. And so that collaboration in the room means that it doesn't really matter who's working with who, because your children are all at different levels, and therefore you have this kind of hierarchy of leadership and experience in your room, which is already instilled. I mean, what normally happens in a mainstream classroom would be all the children are the same age. So the teacher would teach a subject, let's say Roman history, and the top 10% would be tuning out because it's not at their level. The bottom 20% are tuning out because it's too hard for them, and you're only hitting 70% of your class. Well, your Montessori class, you handpick your children appropriate into their ability. Even though a child is 6, they can sit in with a 9-year-old in the same lesson because you know they're at the same ability. And similarly, while you're teaching, children tend to work with each other and establish a kind of friendship pattern to learn from each other. And I think Montessori just rains collaboration, you know, out of the clouds. It's just all about collaboration. Whether you directly put it in the curriculum or not, you will see that it's a natural consequence of having a mixed-age classroom, and I love it.
Yes. And I think I see it most when, you know, you suddenly have, you know, older children supporting younger children when it comes to reading. Yeah. You know, they just sit together and they take turns reading. And the latest example I had was one of my 4-year-olds decided to lead the yoga class. So all the others had to, you know, follow his steps, what he preferred to do. So yeah, the collaboration is wonderful. And I hope that, you know, the parents can also emphasize on that at home, collaborating with each other during this current lockdown and COVID times, about how to move on every day with many things in their daily lives. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I just have another couple of queries. At the moment, we don't have any new questions. How about, you know, they call it helicopter parenting, you know, checking on schoolwork and this and that. You know, how important is it to check on our children's work and providing any form of feedback? You
mean feedback to the parents?
You know,
or to the children?
I think I'd like to know on both sides, on our teachers checking on the students as well as the parents checking on their own children's work, and then feedback to each other. How important is that?
Well, look, I think that teachers in general are very good at knowing what their children can and can't do. Regardless of how often they check or mark their books, you're the one who's continuously with them all day. So you know what they can and can't do, regardless of how much you actually check. But I mean, it's important to have that established routine where teachers are obviously marking books and checking work, because this is part of being a teacher. But I think one key component which rings very strong for me is the power of observation. And we talk about it a lot in Montessori, that, even though we are marking the books and teaching the lessons and working with the children, we are also observing them a great deal. And from those observations, you can tell a lot. Now, from a parent's point of view, parents often forget that if they just actually sit back and watch their child in action, they get a true representation of what they do. I mean, you'll know, and everybody in this seminar will also know, that a lot of parents think their children are angels. So you will say, your son Tommy was swearing on the playground. Say, oh no, not Tommy. Tommy would never swear. And you say, well, actually, I was there and I heard him. He was swearing. No, you must have made a mistake. No, I didn't. And what happens is they haven't taken time to just sit back and watch their child in free play, because Tommy probably swears all the time in free play, but they're not establishing that routine of observing their child, and taking note of the traits that they can see. Are they when something goes wrong, is it a big deal and they break down and cry? Because that's a strong indicator of something that the parents need to build resilience with their children, or have conversation about. Hey, when it goes wrong, that's absolutely fine. Things go wrong sometimes, but quite often they haven't watched their child in action. And so we're doing that a lot as Montessorians, and I'm sure all of your parents here or teachers who are tuning in are doing that. And it's important to have that time allocated in your curriculum too, to say, on Thursday morning, there are no lessons. You're continuing with your work that was delivered through the week, and I will be in the corner and I'm just watching. I'm watching what everyone's doing. And, you can then see your independent learners. You can see people who are collaborating. You can see people who are lonely. You can see people who can't manage their time when there is a void in the curriculum. You can see resilience. You can see empathy. You can see love, understanding. You can see all those skills you want to have in your children that can't be assessed in any exam. You can only see them through observation. And if you don't observe, well, I'm afraid you won't see them.
Right. Yes. So very, very important for us for this observation, most definitely. Perhaps we can finish off by one question which I've always thought about. At stage one, the preschoolers, I've always thought that it's important to say hello and goodbye with the eye level contact, right from the day and at the end. So for the elementary level, even whether it's at home, saying bye to mom and dad, and at the end of the day saying hello again, and at the school, why should, in that sense, I'm thinking about what you were saying earlier on, how important it is that we need to prepare ourselves for the next day. So is that what you mean about, touching base again with the elementary child before the next?
I think, look, I have this strong belief, and I say this to you now as a teacher to another teacher. You can change an entire community in the last 2 minutes of the day. So, and I've done this in the school before. I worked in an Islamic school in Australia for 10 years. And the school was a terrible school. It was really struggling very badly. The community was angry with the school was angry with the community. Children were angry. Emails going home every day about Mustafa is naughty, and it was all negative everywhere. The whole thing was negative. Children didn't like to come to school. It was just awful. So we had a meeting, and I said to all of the staff, we can change this whole community in the last 2 minutes of the day. And all you need to do is stand at the door, and as you say goodbye to every child, you say goodbye, you tell them one thing they did today which was good. Even if they terrorized the room for, 7 hours, but for the last minute, they were sitting down quietly, you say, thank you so much for sitting quietly in that last minute. I really appreciate it. See you tomorrow. And when mum comes to the door, you say to mum, hey, mum, Mustafa sat so beautifully today in class. I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. Mum walks away, pats him on the back and says, hey, Mustafa, well done today for sitting quietly. He says, oh, thanks, Mum. Now, tomorrow he comes back and he sits quietly for 2 minutes. And the next day it's 3. And the next day he does a piece of work for 1 hour. And the next day he works all morning. And the next day he works all day. And every day you just do that with every single child. You give them the attention for something they did correct, and they love attention. And they love attention for the right reasons. You can turn it around. Now, if you said to him at the end of the day, you were really terrible, I hope tomorrow you can be better. He goes away feeling terrible. You say to Mum, he had a terrible day. Mum hits him over the head. You're a terrible kid. You're grounded when you get home. He's angry at Mum. He doesn't want to come to school tomorrow. And so you continue in this negative cycle forever. It just takes you to change it every day for 2 minutes. And wait 1 month later, and you have this really positive whole community. And it's very easy to do. So in answer to your question, I think it's very important.
Thank you. That's so beautiful, Gavin. I think that's, you know, a wonderful, so iconically Montessori part of it, everything. We look for the positive in anyone and everyone around us.
Of course.
All our learning,
yes.
And all that. So that leads me to my final, really curious question about you, if you don't mind.
Final question. Okay.
What makes you go on? You know, on the last, what you talked about is so beautiful about seeing the positive. What makes you go on? You've been at this for the longest time in Montessori, and it's like, you know, you talk about it so beautifully as if it's something new every day and fresh. And you know, it sounds like it's difficult for you to wear out. So what makes you go
on? You mean what makes me continue to work like this?
Yes.
Look, it's a hard question. I come from a background that, you know, I don't come from a very privileged background. So my mum was a single mother. My father left before I was born. I lived with my grandfather till I was 5. We were very, very poor. My mum had a terrible, terrible childhood. And I strive to make her proud. Everything is about making her proud. And she is very proud. And when I call her and she sees, you won this award, and, you know, and these things, you know, it makes me continue to go on. And, you know, as a child, we were helped a lot by family and friends and the community. And, you know, I'm a school principal now of like one of the best schools in the country. I've just nominated for Australian Principal of the Year and Australian of the Year and all these things. And I don't care about any of those accolades, really. I don't. I'm not bothered at all. But, you know, to get this far, you know, has all been about that, you know, replicating what happened to me. My mum worked very hard to give me a chance. And so I've taken that chance and I work very hard with it now. I'm not going to throw it away. And so, you know, I worked in an Islamic school here with refugees for 10 years. I could have picked a job in Scots College or King's or Knox or any of the best schools in the city, but I worked in the worst. And I worked in the worst because I strive for change. I saw those children, you know, coming off of boats from Lebanon and from Afghanistan, and they'd lost their brother or sister, had sank in the Indonesian Ocean, and they died, and they'd watched their brother drown in front of them. And they were sitting in my math class, you know, and I was like, I'm going to try very hard to make you a success. And, you know, that's it. You know, there are a lot of people out there who need help. And there are a lot of people out there with a lot of money who could help. But I guess I've done a lot of work in Nepal, in the Himalayas, one of the poorest countries in the entire world. When you see how little help is required for the biggest amount of change, then you understand that this life is not about accumulating products or getting the best car or the biggest house. It's about, you know, doing the best you can every single day so that you can put your head on the pillow, close your eyes, and think, I did everything I could today. Like this conference, you know, when you asked me, can you do this conference? I said, yes. Are you making money from this conference? And you said, no. And I said, I will do it. Because, you know, if it's for free, if it's sharing knowledge, if it's making other people's lives a little bit better, then you should do that, you know. So that's what keeps me going, and I will do it. I will continue to do it until my heart stops beating, I think.
Which we hope for will not be for, will only happen in a very, very long time. Thank you so much, Gavin, for sharing.
Inshallah, yes.
so inspiring. May all the gold dust rub off you and inspire all the children that you work with, all the people that you work with. We're so happy.
Oh, to you, yes.
And if you don't mind me sharing our last final screen here in celebrating everything that we work for together. And as with Maria Montessori's birthday coming up, for some of you who came late, we are celebrating Maria Montessori's birthday on the 31st of August. 150 years ago, she came onto this planet and has been around the sun, well, until 1907, if I'm not mistaken. And 150 years of Montessori, alhamdulillah. And also, as you know, it's our Malaysian birthday, 63 years. For all of you institutional members out there and individual members, we hope to announce a package whereby we hope that you will be able to share your school, your endeavors through talks like this with all of us, as well as, I think, one more thing we wanted to do. Oh yes, Wee Chen has helped us to come up, and the others have come out, in the ESCO have come up with ideas in celebrating the next 2 weeks. If you could post something about celebrating the peace education and the peace that Maria Montessori has, reminded us about, healing society through peace, all that, with a video and artwork, anything, so on and so forth. Please do that. Please follow our space. We'll give you more graphics about this, and hopefully in 2 weeks' time we have another speaker to celebrate Montessori, her birthday and Malaysia's birthday. We will have a sort of slideshow to share with everybody. So please do join us with that. With that, I hope everyone else can also share all that they have gone through, and that much better or increased journey, enhanced journey in Montessori with the help of Gavin today. Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions except a lot of accolades and thanks from everyone. So
thank you.
Yes, I will have the opportunity to see you again, Gavin, one day.
Inshallah, yes.
Yeah, the restrictions.
I've been learning Arabic for you.
You're probably better than me.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's not a mandatory language. As you know, we have a lot of ethnicities here.
Yes.
Chinese, Indian, and so much and forth. But Arabic is something I have tried, and it's not easy. So if you can accomplish it, wonderful. This is good.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, look, I want to say thank you. Been really nice to be here. And thanks for coming. I will, when I come to Malaysia, we should go out for some roti canai and teh tarik.
Yes, wonderful. Take care, Gavin. Take care again. I know you've got
bye, everybody.
Class after this, so take care. Stay safe. See you then.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Bye. All right, everybody else. Happy to see everyone here again. Can you not leave yet? Actually, you can if you wish to. It doesn't matter because it's on recording. I wanted to do a camera shot, so not to worry. Nice to see anyone and everyone. If you have to go, do. If not, to stick around to have a chat. Anyone else who would like to? I've got a few more minutes. We've got the exco here. As you know, you've got me here, and we did have Rosella earlier on, but she couldn't join us. She's hosting this Zoom session. Alhamdulillah, thank you. And then we also have Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Say hi, everyone. Michelle, our treasurer. And we have, there. Alicia is there, helping Michelle as assistant, and Wee Chen, our secretary. Anyone else in Exco here? No, but yeah, some new faces here, Yasmin and Anne, and Rosemary Amdalo. Hello, Rosemary. I can't recall. Do we know you is somebody else? Another name? Rosemary, are you there? Because I maybe we'll catch up with you. I have to look at the forms who became members and all that. Ah, okay. Rose, are you? Oh, Caroline. Okay, you're using Rose's account. Yeah. Hi, Joyful from Brunei. Nice to see you. And Christine, we haven't seen you for so long. Please remind us, how did we cross paths? Please, I'm very, we've aged for a while. Can you remind us, Christine, when do we meet and all that?
Yeah, there's a time I attend the Montessori workshop that's held by Mrs. Liu.
Oh gosh, that's a long
time. That's a long time ago.
Ooh, wonderful that when things are better, we can meet up again for a cup of tea and cake.
Yeah, sure.
And share some stories and everything. Yeah, anyone else would like to say anything? Small Wonder Children's House, is it you, Tengku Roshna or Afiza? Are you there? Of course, yeah. Hello. Hi. Hi. Are you at school? Are you guys working today?
No. I'm at home with my kids, listening to the.
Hi, kids.
It's
They're watching the session. Were they curious?
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Have you moved to the new school yet?
No, in January.
In January. Oh, wonderful.
January
Yeah. Please, watch our space. We are going to have this session. You can promote your school through MAM. We have a virtual open one. So let's see how it goes. Yeah. So all the best for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Linda, would you like to say hello? How are things in Jakarta? We have a new parent here, Yasmin. From Yasmin, I know I've met her personally. She's got some young children here. You'd like to say a thing or two. Alice, do you have your baby with you or anything? That's why you're covering your camera.
Yes, feeding him, breastfeeding the baby. Sorry.
No worries. We'd love. One day we'll have a session for the babies.
No.
Talk to each other. And of course, I'd like everyone to say hello to Anne, who's just joined us recently and does a lot of eco permaculture things. I've worked with her before. So yeah, so hopefully in the next 2 weeks, you can get to know us a little bit better, talk more, brag about yourself, what you can share, and so on and so forth. Andrea, how are things in Johor? How's school and everything? Are things very different, between the states? Your Jabatan Pelajaran, how's everyone keeping up with the SOPs and all that? I mean, me for one, I find it so tough to tell the children, you have to work on your own, right? Own,
Yeah.
And they say, but it's for 2 people, it's for 3 people. And I say, no, you have to, I find that a struggle. How about you?
So basically, all the children, like they kind of like get used to the SOP pretty well. Yeah. So like in the beginning, like why I must do this? Like it's so different now. I prefer last time. Like it's not the same. But right now they are okay. So they also remind the friends like, hey, we need to keep a distance a little bit, not too close. You don't come so close to me. So it's kind of cute. Yeah. Like sometimes like even the young children like 3 years old, like they remind the teacher, you forgot to put on your mask. Like after usually that we use the face shield for food. Yeah. After that we need to remove the face shield to put the mask. Right? Yeah. Teacher, you haven't put on your mask. So it's kind of cute that they already know. Yeah.
I must admit, today's session was supposed to be it's about the elementary one, and I wish they were as cute as the younger ones. I find having to take my megaphone out, and remind them 1 meter. I've actually done a one-way system in my school, in my school. So they can only walk one way. They will never cross each other, even though they say, oh, I just want to get something, but I said, no, you have to go one way. So they
that's tough.
They makes them think, I must remember to take my pencil with me and this and that. So they're a bit more alert. So I must admit, they kind of also like it. It's just that sometimes they forget,
Yeah. So like for my side, we like paste the flooring with like as though it's the road. So like there's one direction, and then they're so cute. They really follow the arrow. They need to follow the arrows to go to the toilet, to the classroom and all. So they like the arrow, and then we put the traffic light there. Great. And then they need to know when to stop. Then if let's say it's overly crowded and all. Yeah. So I think this COVID-19 has taught us a lot of things. Even the children. Yeah, like after they came back to school, they are different. They are like very appreciative that they can come to school, even 6 and below.
That's right. I think the one that I love most is like they come. It's like the the sale. The sale at 9 o'clock. Open the door. This one they come.
Yeah. That's right.
They quickly take all the equipment and they all sit down quietly. Yeah. It's like, so deprived, so wonderful to watch them.
And I saw that one 6-year-old boy, right? He's like wanted to sneeze, but he's like stopping himself from sneezing so badly. Then after that we asked him what's happening. Oh, I'm afraid that if I sneeze, then you think that I'm having a flu, you will send me back home. So I try not to sneeze.
all these anecdotes, huh? Yeah. So we hope we have opportunity for all the schools and members and all to share all these anecdotes. We will give more details in the next 24 hours, hopefully, also by the end of the weekend, how we would like to celebrate Montessori and Malaysia in the next 2 weeks, so that our next speaker, I forgot to mention to everyone, our next speaker, we have a local speaker, Montessori, who's going to talk about what is Montessori. So maybe the school members can share with their parents, to remind the parents if they can, come onto the session and all that. Or introduce potential parents, potential new students. You can give us the names. We'll add them to the session for this time. And what is Montessori? I mean, I'm sure I can tell you, but not me again. And I'm sure you're also tired, every day. And Alicia and Michelle, it's good to hear from someone else, one of our Montessorians. So that will come in about 2 weeks or so, 2.5 weeks at the end of the month. And we will celebrate Montessori Association, as well as, Montessori's birthday, as well as Malaysia's birthday. And I think, Michelle, what are we, 12 years or 13 years? Because we announced the launch of Montessori on 31st August in 2007. So are we 13 years old now, if I'm not mistaken? 13, right? And in August 31. I think Michelle's frozen up. Okay, yeah. So so Anne has suggested that we build a garden somewhere. That would be wonderful, Anne. But as you know, with the restrictions and all that, we're not allowed to do, formally, we're not allowed to do, all this extracurricular outside activities. So, but if you can do it and start first and see how we can, somehow pitch in, join in, or even show us how to do our own, and that sort of thing, and that would be wonderful. I'll keep in touch to you, see how we can do that. But basically, there's just so much to do. It's already August, September, October, November. So racing against time, lots of us on things to do. And talking about time, I think a lot of us are probably racing to go on to our next activity. It's the weekend, it goes very fast, doesn't it? So thank you again, everybody, for spending your Saturday afternoon with me. And thank you for some of you who gave me lots of well wishes. As you know, the last time we met, if some of you were here or not, I was in the hospital bed, you remember. And I'm much better now, alhamdulillah, much better. Everything's okay. Back to normal. And let's see how we fare for the next 2 weeks or so. And until we meet. Take care, everybody. Nice to see you again.
Bye-bye, Shah.
Bye. Bye. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
See you. Bye. Waalaikumsalam. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Aisha. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, and just see you. Bye, Michelle. See you.
Bye.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we? Save the chat. Oh, I cannot save the chat. How come? I thought I could save the chat. Okay. No, I cannot save the chat. How come I can't save the chat? Okay, never mind. Yeah. Never mind.
It's recorded, right?
It's recorded. I know, but the chat, the chat itself, the chat, usually they say can save the chat. How come?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Never mind. It's okay. Never mind. Everything also one. So yeah. So okay, So okay,
Alright, see you.
I wish we could talk some more, but yeah, we have to move on to things. Yeah, I'll catch up with you. Let me know what's happening. Yeah,
Sure.
and, let's see what happens in the next few days. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.